Hello and welcome to our special show, Vaccinate India, in partnership with Google. On this episode, we are going to be looking at breakthrough infections in Kerala and what the implications there actually are. But first, let's take a look at a key few statistics on vaccinations in India at this stage. Now, nearly 55 crore doses have been administered in the country so far, and it is going up at this juncture. It is going up. However, it needs to be much more. The pace of vaccination, as we shall demonstrate to you, needs to go substantially higher for us to ensure that more people are protected and the impact of a potential third wave is actually minimized. And so a few more details on India's vaccination equation with the aim of stopping a third wave is that we need to target 60% of our population at the very least with both doses by December 2021. So that's what the goal is. Now, the required vaccination rate, vaccinations per day, for us to attempt to get there is 10.3 million doses a day. But in the last 7 days, we've been managing only 5 million a day. Now, this has been a recurrent trend. India has never quite been able to get to what we need to get. So the daily shortfall in the last 7 days, 5.3 million doses a day. And what is the actual vaccination? Well, on the 14th of August 2021, as an example, it was 7.4 million doses in a period of 24 hours, and that vaccine shortfall was about 3 million. So again, we need to now vax at this number over here, 10.3 million doses a day. We're nowhere close to being able to do that at this stage. Now, a lot of very interesting and relevant, very easy to access information is there on Google. Coronavirus statistics, for example, and this is what the India situation actually is, and you can actually see this going up in terms of vaccinations. But obviously, the number of vaccinations need to go up, as we've been mentioning. So, as a percentage of our population on the 26th of June, where we were, if we keep going up, and then it'll take you right across to the final set of statistics that they have. They've got 13th of August as the final set of statistics. So if you click on that, at least one dose on that day, 30.5%, fully vaccinated 8.7%. We need to be at that 8.7% mark. But let's now turn our attention to the big focus now. More than 40,000 cases of breakthrough infection have been reported in Kerala, where the patient contracted COVID, the virus, after vaccination. This has been detected in the state. The Union Home Ministry has indicated this to us. Instances of infection after vaccination elsewhere in the nation and abroad have been relatively rare. The spike in breakthrough infections in Kerala, which has been suffering a resurgence of the virus, has opened up questions about how immunity escape is happening. Now, the central government has asked Kerala to provide samples to detect the genomic sequence in all cases of breakthrough infections to figure out if there has been a mutation, but some indications are that in fact that may not be the case. So that's what you have on your screen. The worst affected area is the Pathamthitta district, where 5,042 individuals who got 2 vaccine doses have got reinfected. So that's an area of huge concern. Sources, as we mentioned, have told the Kerala government, look, you really need to try and figure this all out. Well, joining us now, Dr. Padmanabha Shenoy, a rheumatologist and immunologist in Kochi. We're also joined by Dr. Jayaprakash Mulial, former principal of CMC Vellore and a leading epidemiologist, one of the finest in the country. Dr. Mulial, if we come to you first and we just bring up the numbers of vaccinations in Kerala, that's an interesting statistic to actually look at. Let's have that now, those graphics up on vaccinations in Kerala, because the numbers relative to India are actually quite good in the state of Kerala. And even in many of these areas where we've seen a large number of these reinfections, it's actually quite significant. Therefore, my question to you is this, Dr. Mulial: is it expected that breakthrough infections will take place? We have to look at the percentage of breakthrough infections to really understand whether it's getting out of control, because if you've got more people who've been vaccinated, then there are bound to be individuals who, despite 2 vaccinations, will fall unwell.
You're correct. The answer is that I have seen the data on breakthrough infection, and it's quite within expectation. Now, you use two words, breakthrough infection and reinfection. These two are two different definitions. If you get COVID once and you get it again, then it is called reinfection. In vaccinated people, unfortunately, we do expect breakthrough infection. That is part of the deal. You can't escape it. It has nothing to do with state, district, or the management. It is the feature of the epidemic and the vaccine. That's how it works. And mind you, all these breakthrough infections are mild. Okay, it hardly ever requires hospitalization. But on the brighter side, it is a booster dose.
Right.
Booster dose in the sense that the person who experiences it will have a much better immunity subsequently.
Well, let's talk about immunity. Dr. Shinoy, the question people will ask is that, when will I develop immunity after my second dose? Because obviously developing that immunity will improve an individual's chances at avoiding COVID. So how long does it take for immunity to develop after vaccination, the second dose?
2 weeks will be the precise. So after 14th day to 30th day, they will achieve the maximum immunity. After that, there may be slight decrease in the antibody levels. So, but one thing we should very clearly understand is that, Vishnu, that whether the patient is infected previously or not is extremely important. I think we are making a very important point that if somebody is infected, even a single dose will give you huge levels of immunity. So that has been shown in multiple studies. For them, 2 doses are most of the time not required, and overall the data is going to come out in a couple of days. So it indicates that if you are infected previously, a single dose of vaccine will give you much higher immunity than giving 2 doses of vaccine alone. So that is the reason I feel a lot of the North Indian states are not seeing such a big uptick, while Kerala is still having a lot of cases, because Kerala, if you talk about Pathanamthitta alone, Pathanamthitta has almost 75% is the vaccination. Above 18 years, it has vaccinated 75% of population, single dose, and 35% have got double dose.
Right.
So it is one of the districts which has highest amount of vaccination, and that is specifically the reason we are seeing a lot of breakthrough infections also.
Let's just bring up that graphic, the next one, which has actually got the vaccinations in Kerala, because as a percentage, Kerala is much better. So if we just scroll through these graphics and go to the next one, so that we can actually show what we are talking about. This one. Let's have this up full screen for a moment. Right, and let's stay on this. Now, in Kerala, infections despite high vaccinations. Now, India percentage of the population which has received 1 dose is 30.4%, but if you look at Kerala, it's at 51.1%. So Kerala is well over the national average as far as the first dose is concerned. And fully vaccinated, it's also well above the national average. The national average of people with 2 vaccine shots, 8.7. Kerala is at 19.7, and that's in a sense commendable. I mean, it's nowhere close to where we need to be as a nation, but still it's much more. So therefore, Dr. Mulial, that's interesting, isn't it? And it's also a cause of worry, because if you just look at those numbers, people will say, look, if people are getting vaccinated and they're falling sick, what's the point of vaccination? So could you answer that question? How, when one talks about prevention, despite these statistics, there is nothing more important than obviously, covering your face and taking the vaccine. Let these numbers not lead you to question the need to vaccinate.
No, it does not. The purpose of the vaccine is to prevent serious disease and death, and it's doing it wonderfully. Unfortunately, it does not prevent transmission. So you will get mildly infected. You may even infect others. These are part of the deal. So you have to evaluate the efficiency of the vaccine, not in terms of infection, but in terms of hospitalization and death. And the results have been extremely encouraging. In other words, please don't judge a program based on the breakthrough infection, because If you get infected after vaccination, your probability you will be in trouble is so low, it's
Right.
worth the effort.
Dr. Shinoy, Kerala is an interesting case study, therefore, in how we in India might end up being perhaps a year later going forward, where we would have vaccinated all adults, hopefully all children. I'm talking about 1 year later onwards, right? Where this sort of infection will still happen, it will be endemic. It won't go away. But if everybody has been vaccinated, including children, then people will survive. Hopefully, it won't be very bad. It will be like any other disease, which results in. So, is Kerala, in a sense, a small example of how we as a nation might end up having to face COVID a year later? It's a hypothetical question, and onwards.
Precisely. Before coming to that, Vishnu, I just want to tell you one statistic which I did yesterday. In Pathanamthitta district, out of 2 lakh people who have got disease, who have been completely vaccinated, only 5,000 got disease, so 2%. While unvaccinated is around 4 lakh people, out of that 37,000 got the disease, around 10%. So the efficacy of vaccine is around 70%. So that's what is expected of Covishield or Covaxin, whatever. We are not expecting an efficacy of 95%, but death rate, as Dr. Jayaprakash Murali told, is still very low. And how does the vaccine work? Vaccine makes the disease much, much milder.
Right.
It is like any other flu. So let us face it. That is the reality. It has been shown in Iceland, it has been shown in England, it has been shown in a lot of other countries. Where vaccination is more than 50%, the cases increase, but not the hospitalization or death.
Yeah.
So the flu, COVID becomes like any other flu in vaccinated.
Yeah.
So you will get COVID, but if you are vaccinated, you are saved. So that is the bottom line. So this statistics does not prevent anyone from getting vaccination. In fact, it proves that vaccine is effective.
In fact, it's also, and I'd like to thank you both for joining us. And in the future, when the science behind that booster dose gets more proven, the possibility of actually getting sick will come down even further. So that's something to look forward to. For now, just keep vaccinating. And as far as vaccines are concerned in India, the big problem is availability of vaccines. It's nowhere close to what it needs to be. Now, the Indian pharma major Wockhardt has announced that the company has signed a deal with Dubai's Enso Healthcare to make and supply doses of Russia's Sputnik V and Sputnik Light vaccine against COVID-19. Dr. Habil Khorakiwala, the founder chairperson of Wockhardt, joins us now. Dr. Khorakiwala, always wonderful to speak to you. How many doses are going to come to India from Enso?
I think we have a contract to supply to RDIF and Enso, and it is up to them how many will come. As you know, currently that there is an export ban on vaccine. So in most probability, a major part of our production is likely to come to India.
Right, and therefore, could you give us an idea of how many million doses and by what time period?
We expect to make about 120 million doses in next.
Sorry, could you repeat that, sir? How many million doses, sir?
We intend to, we are supposed to supply about 120 million doses in the next 6 to 8 months. And thereafter, we would be supplying much more additional quantity of about 500 million doses in next 12 months.
120 million doses in the next 6 months of Sputnik.
6 to 8 months, right.
Sure, will be entering India, right?
That is up to the RDIF and ENSO, because we would be supplying it to them. And we believe that as long as the export ban is there, most of the vaccine will come to India.
And as far as Sputnik Light is concerned, because a single dose vaccine, which is what Sputnik Light is so very important, because you can vaccinate so many more people. What is the effectiveness that you're looking at?
See, normally, as per the report available, the Sputnik Light has an effectiveness at about over 80%, whereas Sputnik V has 2 doses have an effectiveness over 90%. So from that perspective, single dose of Sputnik Light is pretty good compared to the vaccine which are available. And initially, we will be manufacturing primarily a Sputnik Light. So with say 100 million doses, you will be covering about 100 million people.
Dr. Khorakiwala, isn't it a bit unfortunate that the rate of production of Sputnik in India, whether by Dr. Reddy's or by you, it's been slow at a time when we need to speed up? Because if you say 6 to 8 months, we're already past the end of the year, which was the target for India to vaccinate at least all 60% of the target group. So it's been a problem, hasn't it? I'm trying to understand why that's the case.
See, as far as Wockhardt is concerned, we just signed it a few days back, the agreement. So our supply can only begin after some time, where technology transfer is more or less complete, and then we should be able to supply. Initially, we would be supplying next 2-3 months smaller quantities, but full quantities we will be able to supply within 6 to 8 months.
And when you talk about technology transfer, is technology transfer of Sputnik, has it been a challenge? Is it very difficult technology to handle? Because obviously safety and all comes into play.
There are 2 or 3 aspects of technology transfer. As far as Sputnik Light technology is there, it's comparatively easier to transfer the technology. Whereas in Sputnik V, you have second component. There is some minor technology challenge, and that's why there is some delay in supplying of Sputnik V by other manufacturers who have signed the contract about 6 or 8 months earlier.
Okay. And sir, one final question. Sputnik is still not on the WHO list, and therefore if Indians are looking to travel abroad, it would still be a problem until such time as Sputnik is cleared. So what is your reading of that?
See, from what we understand from the Sputnik manufacturer and RDIF is they have already applied to WHO for approval, and they expect with the data they have, because the report has already been come in Lancet, they have a good clinical trial of fairly large number of patients available, and they hope that they should be getting WHO approval in next soon. I don't know the timeline.
The thing is, sir, that they've been expecting this for several months now, and it's not come thus far. And in as much as you mentioned Lancet, there have been 2 studies in Lancet. One which said that Sputnik was very good, and then another study also published in Lancet which said that much more data was required. So I'm not sure all of these questions have been answered satisfactorily to the WHO, and therefore the time is more time, is being taken. I mean, how would you respond to that?
I will have no comment on that, because we are not involved in clinical trials or supplying and interacting with WHO.
Right.
It's entirely RDIF effort.
Right. Well, let's hope these vaccines do come into India, Dr. Khorakiwala, as soon as possible. Perhaps more than anybody else, you know how important it is for us to vaccinate as many people as possible. I'd like to thank you very much for being with us. We need to take a short break. There's more coming up. Fully vaccinated general commuters, I beg your pardon, have been allowed to avail of services on Mumbai local trains from today onwards, Sunday onwards, after a gap of 4 months. That's great news for so many, but here's a report.
From today onwards, that is 15th of August, Mumbai suburban railway network will be open for common public. Right now we are at Thane station. Now this is one of the busiest stations. The help desk has been set up by the Thane Municipal Corporation to check and verify the documents and issue passes to the people. You can see that number of people have started coming in and are taking their passes to travel. क्या कहेंगे, अभी ये ट्रेन शुरू हो रही है.
गवर्नमेंट ने अच्छा डिसीजन लिया है. एक्चुअली जो वैक्सीनेटेड जो वैक्सीन जिनका हुआ है उनको जो दिया है, अप्रूव दिया है, वो अच्छा किया है, क्योंकि हम लोग की वजह से मेरा कस्टमर बहुत सफर हो रहा था.
Indeed, it's like I mean, thanks for helping it. Thank you.
So commuters are clearly happy. So what the government has done is that those who are fully vaccinated, those people can travel by train from 15th of August. And before traveling by train, you will have to also there has to be a gap of 14 days. And only then you can travel by trains. Can now across the MMR region, the Mumbai metropolitan region, can take the local trains if they are fully vaccinated, and there is a gap of 14 days after their second dose. In Thane with camera person Rajendra Dhyalkar, this is Purva Chitnas for NDTV.
A study on mixing Covishield and Covaxin, the two main vaccines used in India's COVID-19 vaccination program, has been given the go-ahead by the Drugs Controller General of India. We have the story.
India's drug controller has given its nod for a study to check whether mixing Covishield and Covaxin would be safe and generate a better immune response. The trial will involve 300 volunteers.
A research study for which the permission was sought has been granted permission. There was a study of having mix vaccine combination to be studied by CMC Vellore.
The move comes after a study by the Indian Council of Medical Research which suggested that mixing the two vaccines was not only safe but also results in a more robust immune response. Interestingly, this study was conducted in Uttar Pradesh on 18 individuals who were administered the second dose of Covaxin by mistake after being given Covishield as the first dose. However, the top medical body says that a more detailed research on mixing of vaccines is required. Mixed regimen, experts say, can help overcome the challenges of shortfall of particular vaccines. While the results of multiple studies globally on mixing vaccines are encouraging, the World Health Organization has advised caution, citing limited sample sizes and lack of follow-up data. Serum Institute Cyrus Poonawalla too has objected to mixing of vaccines.
I think it's very wrong, and you can quote me, for encouraging mixing of the vaccine, which is not at all proven in a field trial of thousands of people. Before such a suggestion should be encouraged.
Meanwhile, countries like Canada, Spain, Sweden and France have already allowed mixing of two different vaccine doses to overcome supply bottlenecks. Bureau Report, NDTV.
Time now for us to take this short break.